Welcome to today's event where we have the pleasure to present ExpreS2ion Biotech. To help us through today's presentation, we are joined by CEO Bent Frandsen and CFO Keith Alexander. Today's presentation is about the current rights issue of shares and warrants. And I think it's important to mention that this is going to be a short introduction on your webpage, on the ExpreS2ion Investor Relations. You have a prospectus, much more in-depth details, and you also have all the formularies and everything to do that. So don't hesitate to go in there to get a more in-depth information. I think the prospectus is both in English and in Swedish. As always, you're very welcome to ask questions in the box down below during the presentation, but we will take the main part of the questions in the end. But I think for now, I'll hand the call over to you, Bent.
Thank you very much, Michael, and thank you to HC Andersen Capital for hosting this webinar, which is in connection with the rights issue that we have just announced here this week on the 12th of June. My name is Bent Frandsen. I'm the CEO of ExpreS2ion Biotech, and I'm joined by Keith Alexander, our CFO. And as Michael said, we will do a brief introduction of the background and also be ready for. So basically, in a single slide, I just want to show the progression to the clinic of ExpreS2ion's lead asset, a breast cancer vaccine that we've spent some years now on developing. But the real background is actually when ExpreS2ion was founded back in 2010. We still have a proprietary ExpreS technology, which is a protein production technology, which we have developed over the years and had clients who have solved the protein need with our ExpreS technology. We have established partnerships over the years in terms of licensing research rights for this platform, as well as had partners starting clinical trials in the malaria field with our ExpreS platform. And we, to cut a long story short, have been heavily engaged in the COVID-19 vaccine during the pandemic, which has brought this ExpreS platform to a clinical phase 3 validation. This is very important. So as a biotech company, ExpreS2ion Biotech actually has a clinical phase 3 validated technology platform. This is great, and this is exactly the technology that we apply also in our breast cancer vaccine asset. The breast cancer vaccine asset, we call it ES2B-C001. We in-licensed the rights to apply a VLP technology that combines our HER2 expressing proteins using our ExpreS platform and the VLP technology in-licensed from AdaptVac in 2021. And then we spent some years on developing this in the preclinical stage. We've had some important interaction with the regulatory authorities in Denmark, DKMA, who requested that we performed non-clinical safety studies in non-human primates, and we've done that. And we actually announced here in April this year the completion of the preclinical safety package. In parallel with that, we have progressed on the manufacturing setup. All the processing is in place, and we are doing the good manufacturing practices, production batches as we speak. And that all means that we are approaching a very, very important step here in the very near future, and namely moving into a clinical phase with the ES2B-C001 breast cancer vaccine asset. So the whole background for this is to move into the clinical trial authorization application, the CTA stage, and then get the regulatory approval to start a dose escalation study, which we plan to initiate here shortly within the next 12 months. And we'll carry on with the project because obviously we need to find a recommended phase 2 dose. We'll do a prolongation of the dose escalation study and then progress into a clinical proof of concept stage. And for now, the main purpose is to start the clinical phase 1 trial with the dose escalation phase. And that's why we're doing a rights issue now and asking our shareholders for support in this very important phase of the development program. So basically, to summarize the rationale for this, our lead asset, the breast cancer vaccine project, used to be C001. We can start clinical trials, and we, in best case, actually aim to get the first dose before the end of this year. A very crucial time point for the project and for ExpreS2ion, the company. It's going to be the first clinical trial that ExpreS2ion sponsors and drives onwards. We need capital to start this phase 1 trial and carry it out. We are right now, as I mentioned, finalizing the manufacturing, and we have the preclinical safety package in place. Then we're in a process of getting the clinical development partners in place. We have been in a very nice process of selection of the right partners, and we are approaching that decision and can move forward on that in the course of this summer. And we're also looking into further non-diluting funding, in fact. And then, in fact, just to not avoid any delays in the project where we are now, we are aiming to raise capital, and that's why we're asking our shareholders for financial support now. So with this rights issue, we primarily look into financing ES2B C001, so we can initiate and progress on the clinical phase 1 trial. Approximately 65% of the proceeds are allocated for this program. Then we have smaller portions of the proceeds going for our other pipeline activities, especially the CMV, the cytomegalovirus vaccine project. This is an important vaccine project that we do in collaboration with the Danish biotech Evaxion Biotech. They have a proprietary AI platform, so with their support we can design the right CMV vaccine candidates, and ExpreS2ion can produce the antigen material, and together we can test this in experiments and see if there's a functional outcome, and then ExpreS2ion has the first right to select the lead candidate and progress on that, which we intend to do before the end of 2025. We have internal costs related to various grant-sponsored projects. Small portion goes to that. Most of the grant-sponsored projects are actually financed even to 100%, some only to 67%. So some we have to also finance by this, and then the rest goes for working capital, including exploratory research that we do with generating novel IP and to sustain our platform in the longer run. So this is a brief introduction of the background for why we raise cash now. I'll hand over the word to Keith, who goes through this part.
Great. Thank you, Bent. And so as Ben said, he's gone through now the background and rationale for the rights issue, as well as how we would like to use the proceeds if we were to raise the full amount. So now I'll talk a bit about the structure, as well as how to participate if you're interested in participating. So starting with the structure, there's really 3 parts to this. There's the rights issue, which is going on now, through which we aim to raise approximately 60 million Swedish crowns. And approximately half of that is secured by a combination of insiders, including management and the board, as well as guarantors. So we will raise at least 30 million. If you were a shareholder as of the record date of June 10th, 2024, you received 7 unit rights for each share that you held. And every 6 of those unit rights will entitle you to subscribe for the cost of 1 Swedish crown in 1 new unit. And now, what is a new unit? A new unit is 1 share, a new share, plus 1 new TO10 warrant and 1 new TO11 warrant. So the last key point here is that the subscription period is going on now. It started on Wednesday, and it will continue through the 27th of June. Now, I want to make one note, and this is actually highlighted in red down below. At some banks, the subscription period is shorter, and this is unfortunately outside our control, but it is how it is. And so I've seen at Nordnet, for example, if you don't exercise your unit rights by June 18th, they will sell them. So that I would argue that you should, subscribe before then. At Danske Bank, it's before June 21st. After June 21st, they won't allow you to subscribe anymore. So this, again, you should probably subscribe today or maybe on Monday in order to meet the deadline. One last note, so once you subscribe, you will then receive a temporary share called a BTU, and those will be in your account until the new shares and warrants are registered in early July. And so then they'll convert over to shares and warrants. The next step of the process is the TO10 warrant subscription, and this subscription period is from November 20th until December 4th of this year. And so each new warrant will entail the subscription for a price of 70% of the volume-weighted average price in the period leading up to the subscription period. So specifically from November 1st to 14th. And there is a floor, a low price, and a cap, a high price on these warrants. The floor is the quota value of the shares, and the cap is 1.5 Swedish crowns per share. So the share price less the VWAP discount is above 1.5 per share, it's pure upside to the investor. The TO11s have a very similar structure. Their subscription period is in the third quarter, end of third quarter, early fourth quarter of next year, from September 18th to October 2nd. And again, it's a pricing of 70% of the volume-weighted average price from the 1st of September to the 12th of September. And it has a floor of the quota value and a cap of 1.75 Swedish crowns per share. All of this and more details are available on our investor website. If you go to investor.expressionbio.com and you look at IPOs and rights issues on the left-hand side. And you can also find more in the recent press releases. So overlaying the rights issue with the timeline that Bent presented earlier, you can see the rights issue is going on now. The TO10 warrants will happen during the CTA process, and the TO11 warrants will happen during the dose escalation process. And it's our hope that if we raise the full amount, that this will be enough to make it through the phase 1 trial and into the important data readout from that. So how do you participate? You have two options. You can apply through your bank, or you can download a form and submit it by email or mail. If you opt for the first option, which is the one that we recommend, if you can find the link on your bank's website, we recommend that. That's all automated. So if you go to Avanza or Nordnet or SEB or Danske Bank, they should have a link. I know at Nordnet it says corporate actions and IPOs, and at Danske Bank it says registering of emissioner, and pardon my accent. So the other option is to download the application form and submit it by email or mail. You can find the forms on our website or Vader Securities website. They're leading the process. On our website, it's under IPOs and rights issues, and then the 2024 rights issue. And the process is simple. You fill out the necessary information, including your bank name, your account number, number of units that you would like to exercise, and if you're using unit rights, the number of unit rights you're exercising. There are two different types of application forms. If you were a shareholder on June 10th, you're considered an existing shareholder, and then you would go for the one with preferential rights. And if you were not a shareholder on June 10th, but you'd like to participate, then you should choose the one that says without preferential rights. And then finally, you can submit the form via email to emissione@vadersec.se or by email to this address here. And again, this information is on our website under the IPOs and rights issues section. So that actually ends our prepared remarks, and we'll take some questions, and we'll do our best to answer. There could be a case where we don't have an answer, and if that's the case, I would encourage you to email us at investor@expressionbio.com. So with that, I'll hand it back to Michael.
Perfect. Let's jump into the questions. How much of the guarantee commitments will be paid if the minimum amount is reached?
What do you mean by the minimum?
I think by the minimum is meant the 30 million. If you reach 30 million, how much of the guarantees will then be, how much of the guarantee amounts will you get?
Okay, so this is really a question about whether these are bottom guarantees or top guarantees. And
I think so, yes.
Yeah, these are bottom guarantees. So if we were to raise 30 million without the guarantees and the insider commitment, let's ignore the insider commitment for this, then the guarantees wouldn't pay anything. And that's the structure of a bottom guarantee. If it was a top guarantee, they would pay beyond. But those types of guarantees are harder and much more expensive to obtain. I'd say they're used much less frequently.
Yeah, perfect. Is there any possibility to get external grants for the breast cancer candidate when you progress here?
Ben, would you like to take that one?
Sure. Yes, there is. In fact, different options, both on a European level and on a US level. I think those are the regions with the main potential grant opportunities, and we look into these and investigate if we can actually apply for specific non-diluting funding for especially for the breast cancer vaccine asset. We have actually in the US located some also specifically for breast cancer, so we have them on our plate and consider, and we'll take action on those.
Perfect. And then to jump to a little bit other area, and I don't know whether you want to answer it. There's been some discussion whether the internal ministry will force Bavarian to actually do some applications according to the payment there. And the question is here: are you aware of any of that? Do we want to comment on it? In relation to that, it could give you an extra milestone. So I don't know whether you want to comment on it or express any opinion on this one.
We cannot really comment on it. It's Bavarian Nordic's asset, and at their sole discretion to decide what to proceed with or not proceed with. And as we know from Bavarian Nordic, they decided last year that the COVID-19 vaccine had no commercial opportunity and decided to shelf it, and that's their decision. At least AdaptVac got the 10 million euro phase 3 completion milestone, and ExpreS2ion has obtained approximately 22 million SEK from that, which is helpful.
Good. Then there's a question: growing 39 in 23, where do you see the potential for the CRO business longer term? Is it easy to upscale? How cash generative is it? And can you see that in the future being, as a provider to support your pipeline discoveries?
Well, one of the reasons for 4 years ago going into the pipeline-focused strategy was to generate more value to our investors. We knew that it would be a risky path, but we have seen value generation with the pipeline activities that we've had over the years. And as a consequence, we've not seen the same increase in our revenues from the CRO business as we saw in the period before the pandemic broke out. We have not been able to put an emphasis on sales and business development in the service business in parallel with our pipeline focus. And frankly, the revenue potential cannot really cover the cost for generating the value of our pipeline focus. So we maintain the CRO service business because it's a good door opener to various companies, clients that even include big pharma companies as well. But as a revenue generating entity, it will not be enough to cover the pipeline focused company.
Perfect. Yeah, because the CRO business, it's always interesting, and you have a very validated technology with phase 3, so if you could build on that, also in the CRO business, I think maybe that's why people are asking, you see other companies be very successful, but I do understand that you need to focus somewhere, and you're focusing on the pipeline,
of course.
But yeah.
And it's a good question, but now the strategy is focusing on the pipeline development. And driving a service business onwards requires other means of scaling the business. And I'm not sure our shareholders are prepared to support us in scaling the services business with all the investments in scaling up for a potential profit, which I don't think it will generate the same amount of long-term value to our investors.
Perfect. Some of the funding will go to the CMV project. What is it that make you think you will have an edge on that candidate? I think, you know, a lot of people have tried, and of course that's because that means there's a big potential if you succeed, but also an indication that it's a hard area to succeed in.
It is correct. It is a hard area. There's been research going on in that vaccine field for decades. And there's still not an approved vaccine available, and there's been some challenges even for big pharma companies in this field in late-stage clinical trials. What we do here in the early research phase is taking an AI approach to design the right construct that can target the right places to make a vaccine, and then combine it with ExpreS2ion's ability to make challenging proteins, which we've seen in the past. I cannot help compare it with the malaria vaccine field, where ExpreS2ion has played an instrumental role in getting University of Oxford to a clinical stage, and being the only platform that could make the antigen for University of Oxford's some of their malaria vaccine programs. So this is the same approach we use in the CMV.
Yeah, because I saw on your, I think it was on a Biostock that you said you had seen some early signs, and maybe you don't want to go further than that made you optimistic and choosing this, choosing also to use a little bit of the funds there. So I guess you don't want to go further expressing that than you did in the interview.
But stay tuned.
Yes. What do you see as the market potential for the breast cancer candidate?
Yeah, I can cover that. Well, actually, we see in terms of market value, we see a market that exceeds, or is estimated to exceed 30 billion euro. And we, of course, have done our business case and can see with the profile we can get out of our vaccine approach that we can generate a good market share and look into a blockbuster potential. We may be able to reach a 3 billion euro sales level at that point in time, of course, driven by the right partners' commercial infrastructure. Yeah, but that's definitely a multi-billion market out there.
Perfect. And then there is a question here or a comment that the size of what the insiders are coming with in compared to the total is should that be viewed as a way to look at the future prospect or other things? You know, the size of the insider of the total raising amount.
I'll let Keith answer that question. Keith, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would start off by saying that the insiders are not making an insignificant investment. It is a material investment, especially when you consider their personal wealth. I think that especially in the case of Bent and Martin, our chairman, they're both in our top 10 shareholders, and they're both making material investments. In every case, for any investor, you should consider your individual risk appetite and your financial means. And I think, you know, for investors outside the company as well as inside the company, those are things that people have on their minds when they're making their commitments.
Perfect. Then there's a little bit technical. Do current shareholders, the management and the board of directors intend to use the subscriptions right they must have received based on their current holdings?
I think in the prospectus, we've been quite public about the commitment that we've made as insiders. And so I'd encourage people to look there for more information. They can see exactly what people are committed to and all the insiders are committed to.
Then how far and long does the cash balance extend after hopefully a fully subscribed issue?
Yeah, I don't want to answer that. There's a lot of factors that go into play here. And so, as I mentioned before, we're hoping that if it was fully subscribed, we could reach the phase 1 data. And we provided some kind of rough timelines, but I would also put a large caveat on it that those are very rough timelines. There's information that's up to the regulators, and it's all dependent upon them a bit as well. And until things are set in stone, it's a little hard to commit exactly 100%. But we are targeting obtaining the phase 1 data with the rights issue.
Then that's a question. Guarantors, are they paid in cash or shares for putting up the guarantee?
If I recall correctly, it's up to them. They have different terms based on whether they get paid in cash or shares, and they will say, I believe, after the rights issue is completed. I remember last year we had the same structure, and many of them opted to receive compensation in shares, and there was a separate press release about that being structured as a direct share issue.
Perfect. Then there's a question: how did you decide on the warrant subscription period? The time frame when it comes out. I think maybe what we are asking here is: do you expect to deliver some news flow, between now and the 1st and the 2nd? Is that how you are thinking about the warrant period?
Yes, there are several important milestone triggers here in the near future. Of course, the clinical trial authorization application, the CTA application, we expect to file after summer. That's a very important milestone. And that will lead to a regulatory approval to initiate the clinical phase 1. And there, it's of course very important that once we start dosing the first patient, we cannot be absolutely sure about that particular event, but the warrant, the TO10, the one with the exercise period in the end of November and beginning of December 24, is placed to accommodate what we can get out of the development program here.
Perfect. And then, I think you answered one of the questions here. Outcome of the share issue will take you all the way through. No, you comment on that. And then there's a final question, and then I will let you off the hook. If cash and proceeds will take you through to phase 1, and you already commented on that, there's some uncertainty at that. You will need a partner for phase 2, correct? So a little bit on comments on that. It's still your expectation to partner up as early as possible. Is that correctly understood?
I wouldn't phrase it like that, because in reality, to get the most value for our shareholders and the company, it would be best to partner out as late as possible.
Yeah.
Once we have more evidence on this from a clinical part. But what we've said is that in parallel with all this and this late preclinical stage, we have initiated some partnering search, and that is basically to present already now. We think we have a very compelling preclinical package. Bear in mind, we have earlier presented that we can completely inhibit the growth of tumors and even seen 100% efficacy in terms of survival of animals over 600 days, which is astonishing. If we can translate that into a clinical setting, that would of course be awesome. But basically, we knock on partners' doors and present this as it is and make the case, and then we'll see whether it will be earlier or later. But of course, starting a clinical phase 1 now is great, so we can proceed and retain the ownership for as long as possible, generating the clinical data that the shareholders will support us with, and then see when we can strike a partner deal based on that.
Perfect. I think we can just catch the one who got in there. You often go to conferences. I see the news flow from you with your products. Are these conferences meant to look for a partner or a major investor, or both? So a little bit of thoughts about the reasons why you are attending those conferences and showing up all your data.
It's a combination of partnering and also scientific conferences to present the data that we have. Partnering and business development is very much dependent on the data that you have. So we also need to attend scientific congresses, of course, to present what we have. So that's the background for that.
But then we also do the investor presentations to try to meet new investors and explain our story.
Of course.
Yeah.
Perfect. No more question. Thank you to you, Bent and Keith, for taking us through your presentation and answering the questions. And thank you for people listening in. May everybody have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.